Counselor Sullivan, Counselor Devine, and myself, Counselor Givner. In the chambers, we have Mayor Josh Garcia. Online, we have no other counselors? Yeah. So we can start, and I will entertain a motion.
Motion to take up item number 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 1 is the minutes from the February 25th meeting. Do we have any corrections or changes?
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion?
Motion to take up item number 2?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2 is a public hearing for a special permit application for the home occupation application of Amanda and Marcos Garcia for a remote accounting work business at 25 Breton Lane. Both Amanda and Marcos are here today. Do we need to suspend the rules to allow them to speak on behalf of their?
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so if one of you or both of you wouldn't mind coming to the mic and just giving us a little rundown of your application. You'll want to start with your name and address, please.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
just make sure you open the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is open.
My name is Amanda Garcia. The address is 25 Breton Lane, Holyoke, Mass. So an overview, I'm a full-time professor of accounting at Elms College, and I have a side business of doing accounting and taxes from my house.
Okay. So this is pretty straightforward. Do we have any questions from the committee about this? Counselor Sullivan?
So Amanda, are you living at this house?
I do live at the house.
Okay, so this is your full-time residence?
It is my full-time residence, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question.
Counselor Devine?
You're a full-time professor at the Elms,
I am.
and your application says hours of operations 9 to 4.
Yeah, like if a client stops by, so I don't teach every day
Oh,
as a
okay.
full-time professor, so I just put 9 to 4 because some days I have off, some days I don't.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? So,
Motion to approve.
Well, I think you have to ask if there's anybody
yeah,
in
we have to-
favor.
Sorry.
is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this special permit application? Yes?
Yeah.
That's, yep. Come right up. Yep.
Yep, and just have to state your name and your address, please, and you can make your comment.
I'm Lori Tatro.
Mhm.
I live at 10 McMahon Drive, right around the corner.
Okay.
Oh,
Microphone.
I can't tell.
no, it's okay.
It's my fault.
So do your name and address.
Okay. I am Lori Tatro at 10 McMahon Drive in Holyoke. When these guys bought the property, it was clear that their intention was to set up a business. The remodeling, the blackout shades, the wiring was done to support a business. No one has ever moved into the house. It's dark and uninhabited on nights, weekends, holidays. It's busy there from 9 to 5 every day. Whether they improve the street appeal or keep a nice house or it's quiet, it doesn't matter. It's a business, and it's a business in my neighborhood. It's a violation of our zoning laws. It's a violation of our tax laws. It's a violation of our business laws. I've lived here for 53 years. I'd like it to remain a residential neighborhood with no businesses. I'm set.
I just want to add, because this is on her.
You
In
You have to speak in the mic.
Sorry,
and-
I'm just going to add,
And you have to add your name and
Nicole
address.
Muller, I live in 9 Woodbridge Street in Holyoke. One of Mom's contentions is there are between 6 and 8 cars there every day, all day. So I don't think it's just a one-person business.
It's not.
Anything else? Do you want a copy of what she said? She did not submit it previously.
I don't know if we can, well, yeah, we can accept
Yeah,
it. It's
still
public
on
hearing.
benefit, yeah.
Yep.
You
Want to grab it?
That's what we're discussing.
All right, thank you. Anyone else present who'd like to speak on this?
My name is Ralph Webb. I live in 21 Breton Lane, right next door to 25 Breton Lane. I have no complaints. I mean, I understand that they needed to be legally if they're running a business, but again, they're a good neighbor. I have no complaints of anything that goes on in the house. It could be a lot worse. I've lived all over the country. I'm a chef. I used to be chef at the Golden Lemon. Taught at Dean Tech. But I moved into places before and had beautiful neighborhoods, and 3 weeks later, there's 4 Hell's Angels buying an apartment down the street. So I'm good.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Marcos Garcia, and Amanda's husband. And I'd like to say, with respect, I also run my own business. I don't run it out of there because I have multiple properties, but there's no real office to set up. So you see a lot of traffic there, but you see my employee, you see my friends, which I help
One
them with
person
their
at a time,
properties.
please.
And I have quite a few properties in Holyoke, and so there's a lot of traffic, me going in and out. Okay?
Thank you.
Just for the record.
So also to add to that, one of the reasons we're not always there every night is Marcos's dad is in his 70s, and we own another property, a multifamily in Holyoke where he lives, and we go to him in the evening and take care of them. So we spend some nights there and some nights helping his dad, who's in his late 70s.
Okay.
I think just an additional question would be, your business has been operating there since 2023. And when we raised a question about the traffic on the street, that's what set this all in motion. So if it's all above board, why did you not have this permit previous to this?
Thank you. It's not supposed to.
The reason why was because the business was being operated out downtown Springfield. We had an
Yeah.
office there. So
So excuse Marcos 1 second. So the way the meetings work, you cannot interchange words back and forth. This is not a this is a conversation with this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcos?
good. Okay. So the business was operating out of Springfield, and there's a transition period in which, for various reasons, we had to move it out of where we were to kind of work our way towards Breton. And that's basically it.
Counselor Devine?
Yeah, I have a question. If you could stand back up with the mic. You own the house, okay, on Breton, but you're not there all the time?
No.
We're there daily most of the time, but we own another house 2 miles away,
Yeah.
and we help take care of his dad.
Do you sleep there
We sleep there, yeah, both places.
every day, or just,
No, we
We split up our time.
Yeah, part-time. So
Okay.
depending
We
on
also
whether-
travel, so there's other reasons why we may not be in the city altogether, so.
and you had said that there's several cars from your other businesses that are parked in your driveway or on your street?
I have 3 registered vehicles to the address, and I have a couple friends that come often to the house. And then if you take into account the fact that this is tax season, you're probably going to get 3 or 4 cars for maybe, whatever the 2 or 3 months that whatever tax season runs up until April.
And are you doing taxes now in that house?
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Thank you. Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, Marcos, when you first came to the microphone, you stated that you had employees parking cars there and coming in and out also?
The reason I say that is because when you go to the house, let's say, for instance, you're getting tools or you're doing anything like that, if you're doing any kind of renovation, you're going in and out and somebody's with you, I mean, that's a vehicle. That street in particular is not set up like other streets where there's enough room. But I've taken an account of the street traffic, and you have a school that's wrapped around the corner, right? That's right in our backyard, literally. You have all the parents that park on Kane Road. You have parents that go on to Breton. A house that's diagonally to me has at least 4 or 5 cars there all the time. The house at the top of the street has maybe, I don't know, maybe 7 cars. You know, I have a neighbor 3 houses up to our left-hand side that has 4 cars, 2 campers. I have one on Kane Street that has a camper, a boat, and 4 cars. So, you know, then you add the mailman, Prime, FedEx, UPS, and all the Ubers that are delivering food. It can get busy, but it usually dies down around, I don't know, 4-ish, I want to say.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yep.
My question isn't about Uber or Postman or anything else like that. Now you're telling me you have tools, employees come to get tools, so you're actually running another business out of the house besides the accounting business we're talking about?
No, what I'm saying is that I mainly keep my tools at a different address, but it's not completely unheard of if I have to go there and get tools, or I'm having somebody meet me there, you know, just normal everyday stuff, so.
Right.
Yep.
I have some other public comments I'd like to read.
Miles said.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I don't see any other public comments online, and I see Councilor Rivera is now online, and he has his hand up. Councilor Rivera?
Yeah, I think my question around them running the business out of that space, because it sounds like they're running a business out of the space. Is the house being taxed like a business, or is it being taxed like a residential area? Because I know that once we identify someone running a business in their house, we actually reappropriate the taxes as the house as for a business, no longer a residential residence. So I think they might want to consider that, given that it's his father's property and not necessarily his, or it is his, I'm not sure.
It's
But
their
like,
property.
It's sounding like, okay, so it's I guess for me it's like, would they, there's a lot of loopholes that they're gonna have to get through, but would they be okay with their taxes on that property being reassessed as a business versus a residential property? Because that's technically a business being run out of a house. But yeah, that was my point that I kind of wanted to point out.
All right, so at this point, I just want to remind everybody that this is a permit for a home occupation application for remote accounting work. I have some public comments here. So the first one is from Pauline and Richard Champagne, 11 Breton Lane, Holyoke. My husband and I received a notice for the above special permit hearing for a remote accounting work business on our street. Unfortunately, we will not be able to attend the meeting on March 11th. We hope that you can make this communication as feedback and on the application on our behalf. We are opposed to the business on our street. This is a residential area, and as residents for over 50 years, we would like to continue to be residential only. Please let me know if this feedback can be taken into consideration at the meeting. The next one is from Dennis Barlow, 29 Breton Lane. My name is Dennis Barlow. I'm the resident and owner of 29 Breton Lane. I am one house south of the property in question. I'm not able to make tonight's meeting. Before Amanda and Marcus moved in, the property in question was starting to fall into disrepair. The shrubs in the front of the house were so overgrown, and as the neighbor to the north can contend, the backyard only got mowed at the end of the season and was overgrown all year. The structure attached to the back of the house was severely rotted and ready to fall down. Amanda and Marcus immediately cleaned up all landscaping, removed overgrown shrubs, mowing the lawn, trimming overgrown trees, repairing the rotted structure, making it safe again. Also, Marcus painted the entire foundation. Everything they have done, in my belief, has increased the value of all of our houses in the neighborhood. If you enter our neighborhood from Homestead Avenue onto Kane, the first 3 houses on the right, directly across from McMahon School entrance and exit, have multiple cars parked on the street. This at times is very dangerous, but yet it is legal. The same thing takes place on the street above us, on Primrose. As you turn from Kane, both sides of the street are parked on both sides of the street have, I think it means have parked cars, are creating a very narrow lane. I don't believe anything Amanda and Marcos are doing has any impact on our neighborhood. If anything, I believe they have improved it. Thank you. And then one more, and this is from, I didn't write your name down. Ooh. Thanks. And this last communication is from Lori Tatro, who was at the mic earlier. When Amanda and Marcos bought this property, their clear intention was to set up a business. The remodeling and rewiring that was done was to support a business and this structure. No one has ever moved into this house. No one lives there. There are between 2 and 8 cars parked there every day from about 9 until around 6. The nights and mornings are dark and uninhabited, as are holidays and weekends. Whether or not they have improved the street appeal of the house doesn't matter. It's in violation of our business licensing laws. This business has been here since 2023 and is only now applying for a permit. It's in violation of our zoning laws. The street, neighborhood, and area are zoned single-family residential. It is in violation of our tax code. The tax rate for a business is substantially more than a single-family residence. It's completely illegal on every count, and even the special permit request is filed with false information. This is not a residence, nor is it a home business. It's simply a business, and it has several more employees than is allowed. My family moved into this neighborhood more than 50 years ago, and we would certainly like to see the area remain residential and business-free. All right. Do we have any other?
I have a question.
Counselor Devine?
Yeah, I have a question. If this is, how do people know that, the people that your customers, how do they know to go to Breton Lane to have their taxes done?
So honestly, I do most of my work remotely. So I have employees that live in other states that work remotely. I never meet with them. We meet on Zoom all the time. But I do have a lot of elderly clients that aren't going to upload stuff on the internet and do that thing, so they want to drop off the address. The only way they would know is if they were in direct communication with me. I don't advertise it anywhere. There's no signage. We would have to talk on the phone, and only people I know are allowed to come over and drop off their documents. But a lot of my elderly clients, they want to see me in person, hand me the document. So I do give them the address.
And then once you do that, do they come back and pick up?
It depends on the client. They might come back and pick up. A lot of the people, I package it up and I mail it back to them.
And why did you, if you've been doing this for a while, why did you all of a sudden go to do a special permit?
I went to do the special permit because I had officially moved out of downtown Springfield, and I didn't apply for a business license originally because it's an LLC, and I applied through the state. But I officially moved out. I moved into the house residentially in 23, but we officially moved out of the business at some point, beginning in 24.
The business in Springfield?
Yes, I had an office in Tower Square.
Okay.
A shared office space.
Okay.
You all set, Counselor Devine?
Yeah.
Okay. Counselor Rivera, you have your hand up?
I think again, like for me, I guess the only concern for me is if it's gonna be running a business, they just have to get appropriately taxed the right way, because it's not fair to the residential people that are actually residing in their properties, that people pay the same rate and if they're actually running a business out of the space. And I know that the R1 rules and all the other rules, that there's a whole bunch of rules that they're gonna have to get around with a special permit. But the one you're not gonna be able to get around is if you're running a business out of the space, you're gonna have to pay a business tax code. That's the only thing for me. Again, I gotta kind of harp on that, because it's kind of a loophole for someone to be able to just say, oh, then I'll run the business out of my house and not have to pay the taxes that you would pay that if you were running it as a business. But I just kind of wanted to harp on that one piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Rivera. I just wanted to recognize that Counselor Bartley has been in the chambers for a little bit. Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Attorney Bissonnette, when it comes to weigh in maybe on zoning and taxes when it comes to home occupation.
Is that the whole question?
Good evening.
Yep.
Good evening.
The zoning law makes an exemption for home occupation, so they really become two different animals, if you will. Home occupation is allowed as a matter of right in some areas, but this is one that requires a special permit and is a deviation from the as of right rules. So given that there will be people coming to pick up tax returns and other accounting forms at the occupation site, that would require the special permit. So you can take that into consideration when considering whether or not to grant the permit, but it is not a function of zoning, and it really is a function of the special permit process. Hope that answers the question and clarifies it a little bit.
Thank you. Counselor Devine?
Are you done? Yeah, my understanding with a special permit for a home occupation, you're not even supposed to know that a business is going on in there. There's usually no signage, if I'm correct, no signage whatsoever. And I'll be really honest with you, the problem I'm having, with all due respect to your husband, is it seems like he's running a business out of the house with all the people coming in with tools and things like that. And that, to me, is a problem. So I just want to be honest with you.
Thank you, Counselor Devine. Counselor Bartley?
I wasn't even going to speak on this. Can I just? I'm just going to address the chair, okay? And a couple things. I did some due diligence, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So they're definitely the homeowners. They definitely have she definitely has a limited liability company. It's been in existence for double-digit years and is current with everything with the Secretary of State. The liability company changed its resident agency and place of business to 25 Breton. Perfectly legal. They did everything right as far as I can tell, as far as that goes. So to me, that's very important. When I see a homestead recorded, the party signed the homestead, which is the case here, signed it under perjury that they're going to reside in the property. Now, we're not marching in the house at any time soon, this crew here, to verify they're living in the property. But when I do hear a butter saying that the house is dark at night, it just raises a semi-red flag, okay? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just pointing out what I know to be true, okay? So homestead is a really important state law. Doesn't matter what it says, but they say on the homestead document that they are intending to reside in the property, and consequently they get the protection of homestead. Okay, just want to point that out. If I can point out a couple other things. R1 is a law. There aren't ways to get around it. So I just want us to be real careful with the language, because when we use language like that, it just raises a question mark. What's happening here is that under R1 it's restrictive zoning for single-family homes. That's pretty clear. But the legislature carved out exceptions, like they always do, right? Said with a special permit, as Attorney Bissonnette, application and allowed, you can do certain business activity within it. Now, the exceptions, as the chair knows, because you've been doing this long enough, are not written out anywhere, but they're generally generated by this committee. So, for example, no signage is a standard one, explicit hours of business, amount of foot traffic and automobile traffic is all restricted on the permit. And if there's a violation of it, what happens is typically an abutter and a neighbor is going to start seeing 2-3 cars a day, start taking photos, and start sending photographs to the housing department. And the housing department inspector is going to come up to the house and see 2 or 3 cars. Now, it's not their job to knock on the door and go through the property, but you can see 2 or 3 cars, and on the permit, for example, this committee is going to say 1 car per hour or something. And now we're going to see 2 or 3 cars, and as you heard another counselor mention, we may have another business there. So what does that do, Madam Chair? Well, that brings more vehicles there, and that could overturn what the intent was on the special permit. The applicant is the tax preparer. The unfortunate consequence of going to get my tools, having employees come there, going to get their tools, is that you're going to have more than 1 car. And if it just so happens that the building inspector comes and there's 2 or 3 or 4 cars there, take a photograph, they're really going to need to explain themselves. And a special permit is a license. It's not a right. So it can be easily revoked. Relative to the commercial tax rate, I just want us to be slightly careful on that. The amount of what the assessor will do is she will go to the property and she will ascertain what area, what percentage of the square footage is being used as commercial. And at that point, the assessor has a right to do that and has a right to go into the house. And the assessor will ascertain the percentage and will readjust the tax rate accordingly. So as opposed to $19 for residential and $39 or thereabouts, I'll stand corrected, but I'm in the ballpark, for commercial, that'll have to be adjusted. The open question becomes, can you do that retroactively? No, you cannot. That's not how law works. We don't go back and zap people after the fact. But it can be done prospectively, and that will likely happen. So, in sum, I do see, if I was going to advise this board, I would just say you might want to consider tabling this thing, and we might want to get some more intel, because I don't know what the name of the business is. I don't know how often the other business, the tax preparing business seems like a fairly low-key business. That's the kind of business you want to have you want to consider, it's like that. You want to consider allowing on a special permit. But when you start coupling it with other businesses, I think it raises some potential issues that should be looked at. So I don't think that I think that the condition should be, if you're going to do it, hours of operation, amount of vehicle traffic, amount of foot traffic, certainly signage. I think you heard one councilor say well, that's a condition. It's not a standard thing, but we generally say no signage, and because it's a residential it's a residential R1 neighborhood. The residential integrity has to be maintained. That's why I think you're another council. It's almost like they're not even there, right? That's usually that's usually the MO. But it's in this case, there's so much activity going on. I'd ask them to, if I was going to do it, I'd ask them to maybe get that aspect together, because right now it's not. I mean, I'm hearing loud and clear from the public on that. Mm-hmm. Right now, their act's not together in terms of that. You can't just come in here and say, well, sometimes I get my tools. That's great you get your tools, but by doing that on a regular basis, you're negatively impacting the potential for a special permit. And it's not fair to the neighbors. My 2 cents, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yeah, I would like for Mr. Garcia to clarify, if you don't mind stepping up to the podium, and just clarify.
Go ahead.
I want you to clarify that are you or are you not running your business in that home, and are you storing your equipment at the home? And when somebody comes over, they're picking up the tools just because you're I want you to clarify that so it's clear to the committee and to the people who are watching.
I just want to be clear that I'm not running a business for real estate out of the property. What I'm saying is that was used as an example that there are times that I leave the house, and if I have to come back to my house and get something, that's traffic. If I come with a friend, or if I'm in the house and I have a friend come over and pick something up, or I'm unloading or loading or taking care of the surroundings of the property, that in itself, because it's a smaller street, is traffic. So that's just an example, but if I wasn't doing it there, I have to do it at one of the other properties in terms of getting tools. Everything is spread all over the properties, just for clarification.
So it's safe to say that the tools you're referring to are tools that most likely that I would actually have at my house, because I do work on my house. So I have those tools as well. So are those the tools you're referring to?
I'll give you an example. So for instance, I own a property on Maple Street, right? If I'm Maple Street's not a property where I would necessarily tie down a lawnmower and leave outside because of the neighborhood.
Right.
But I may keep it at Breton Street, but I also keep one on Dwight Street. So, there are times that I go in and out, but that's not that I'm running a business out of there. It's just that that's my house where I feel most comfortable storing that particular piece of equipment, or I use it there.
Right, so it's not like you're storing 6
Yeah,
lawnmowers.
I don't have tenants and no one goes to the house,
Right.
nothing like that. Everything is done online, and that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Devine.
Again, just, I'm trying to, where do you store these tools and things like that? In your garage, in your,
So
come on up
We
on
can't
that.
hear you, sorry.
It's okay.
The house doesn't have a garage. It has a storage shed, and not everything that I have is there. There are things that I keep on, like I said, the other addresses like Maple Street, Dwight Street, Sargent Street. I keep tools in each one of these properties. It depends when you're doing something, where you
So if you're at one of your properties and you need a lawnmower, you go back to Breton.
I may
get a
go back to
lawnmower
Breton, or I
and-
may go to Dwight Street, or for instance, that might be the last place I used a particular tool and I just left it there, or I forgot it there, or whatever, and I just go back. So I'm just saying that adds to it, We also have
Thank you,
friends that come
Counsel.
over. We have, we're busy people.
Yeah, and I had written, I don't think Counselor Bartley was here yet, that the hours of operation were 9 to 4 with 6 to 8 cars every day. So I wanted to emphasize that. I'm sorry? Let's see.
They're not listed, but we can
Yeah,
definitely.
they're not listed. But it's just, I just have some questions that I can't seem to formulate, and perhaps Counselor Bartley is correct. Should we table this or take a vote? I'm going to be really honest, I do have some questions
I also-
that I may be voting no against this permit, with all due respect to you guys.
Thank you, Counselor Devine. I would just like to make a statement. I'm a homeowner, business owner, and I have to go to my house to get stuff. I have lots of friends. I don't have enough parking for them. They have to park on the street. I don't live in an R1 zone, but I do understand that people have families and friends and people who come by. I commend you for, trying to do this the right way. I also appreciate having parents in their 70s who may need some care, who you may have to go to their house and sleep over. I also travel a lot, and I appreciate that holidays, weekends, whenever you might leave. So I just want to put that out there. It's not, I see the traffic as a problem, and those are stipulations we can put on a permit. Having 6 cars at a time, we probably will not approve, but I don't see anything nefarious going on here as of yet. We have had only 4 public speakers, 2 of which were for and 2 of which were against this. So I think if we can dial down the traffic and figure those things out, I think we might be able to get somewhere. I think Councilor Sullivan had a question too. Councilor Sullivan?
Once again, Marcos, so do you have employees, when they come to get to it, but do you have other employees leaving their cars parked there during the day?
Well, I'll give you an example how we kind of remedy that. Like this year, we had all that snow, right? But school was out. So I just had my friend who was coming, who helps me out at the properties like snow blow and that kind of stuff, just park at the school so that we wouldn't block like Breton Lane. It's really difficult. Those streets are really small. You can barely get 2 cars going by this way. Not really, because no one's stationed there per se, but it's, and 6 cars, that's an exaggeration. Okay?
You gotta come up here.
I just want to say our issue is not necessarily the traffic, because the point is being made that there's cars all over the place. The problem is that there is more than one employee working there, and there are multiple cars parked there, the same cars, every day. So our issue is not traffic. Our issue is the permit is for one employee that is not a resident, in addition to the resident employee. I've done a small business out of my home. My parents own a small business. We do it the right way. She's a professor. She knows the rules. I don't understand why it's, we're saying to you, we see the same cars every day. I have pictures of them. Mom has them. It feels like a business with multiple employees. I'm not sure, maybe they have friends that leave their cars there every day. Possible. But it feels like it's a business, and it feels like it's against the rules. And as people who have started businesses and run them correctly, legally, paid the taxes, filled out the forms when you open your business, this just feels like a slap in the face. I'm all about business. I'm all about women-owned business. I've seen your website. It has your address on it. I just feel like the truth is not being told. And I'm here to support my mom because it's her neighborhood. She's lived there for 50 years. And it's not the cars. There's a rule, and there's a rule for a reason.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Counselor Devine.
When you were first applying for this permit, did you go to the neighbors at all and ask them, let them know that you were applying for this and get their take on it?
Amanda, you're already here.
I applied, but I applied only because there was a complaint. That's really why I applied.
I have to be honest, I didn't know about the permit. I'm just going to be clear.
We
I've
would have
been
done
in
it from day
Holyoke. I
one.
didn't know about the permit.
As a
I
matter
would
of
have done
fact-
it from day one.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, somebody from the city went there at one point at the very early, and
Thank you.
I'd like to add that what I can also do is apply for a permit to put a driveway on the right-hand side of the house. That way, I'm not blocking the street.
I'm sorry, we can only have one person speaking at a time, and this is starting to
I mean,
go back and forth. So.
Just for the record, when I first came in here, it was about the traffic.
You can't.
Okay.
Ma'am, please.
All right.
About speaking to the neighbors, the two direct neighbors, one that are, in my opinion, mostly impacted. She's around the corner and up the street. So the two direct neighbors I speak to all the time. And I told them, if you have like something, those are the people I'm in contact with, the one to my right and the one to my left, right? And the one to my left, whichever way facing the house, is here tonight, and the other one, Dennis, wrote a letter of support. So the two direct neighbors I speak to all the time, and they wrote letters of support or came here tonight in support of it.
Thanks. I'm all set.
I'd like to make a motion to table.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr.
Chair.
Oh, yeah, we have to close the public hearing, huh?
No,
No,
we don't.
Oh,
'Cause
okay.
it's
We're going to continue it. Yes, Jeffrey?
No, I just wanted to make that clarification that it has to be a motion to continue to a date certain.
Okay, so we're, in that motion, we're,
If you'd like.
yes. In that motion, so our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, April 8th. So the motion would be to table this item and continue the public hearing to April 8th.
Until we get more information.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to go get that information.
That's
Well, I
what
was
we have
gonna,
to.
have you go to every neighbor on Breton, let them know that this is what you're doing, and see if they're willing to do a yes or a no.
Didn't a notice go out?
I'm sorry?
A notice would have went
Oh,
out.
that's right, but,
Yeah, no, I understand.
yeah.
Counselor Sullivan?
I would also suggest that if there is another business or seems to be another business running out of the residence, that you take steps to cease and desist on that and make some other arrangements for whatever else is going on. Because I am hearing from other residents that there's a business running there. So.
Just to clarify, it's not specifically a business. We own rental properties and we maintain the rental properties ourselves. So I guess yes, it's a business, but it's related to just maintaining the rental properties that we own.
Thank you. All right, so this has been continued to April 8th, and yeah, we'll just need some more information by then that shows that there's less traffic, and hopefully we get some more neighbors to come out and share how they feel about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to take up item number 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 3 is a public hearing for a special permit application of Alan Finney for the creation of a Finney Family Cemetery at 2 Finney Road. I like this. There's a lot of Finneys in this sentence. Oh, sorry, Feeney.
What did
Got
you
it.
say?
My bad. All right, Feeney. So, we have that application here, and there was a communication from the Board of Health, which I am going to read in. Dear DGR Committee, a special permit by Alan Feeney was brought to the Board of Health's attention for a Feeney family burial plot located at 2 Feeney Road. This is possible, however, the applicant will need Mass DEP approval, Conservation Committee approval, and a final written approval from the local Board of Health. The application has been notified, the applicant has been notified of this and that they will need to meet the criteria below: 2 copies of the site plans, type of burial, number of plots, name and contact info of licensed soil evaluator. If using a professional engineer or registered sanitarian to draft plan, their names and contact info must be provided. Setbacks from the closest edge of the burial plot to edible produce that is being grown on the farm. Setbacks from the closest edge of the burial plot to any surface water. Depth of burial. Estimated seasonal high groundwater. Separation distance from bottom of burial to groundwater. And elevation and slope. The Board of Health would like to suggest, if the committee approves this family burial plot, that it is approved with the conditions that written approval from the Holyoke Board of Health will be necessary before proceeding with any burials. An alternative suggestion would be that the committee continues this application process until the applicant is able to receive the Board of Health's official written approval.
Motion to, sorry, are you done?
Yes.
Motion to open the public hearing?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, public hearing is open. Is anyone in the chambers that would like to speak on this? Would you like to speak on behalf of yourselves, Mr. Feeney's? Misters Feeney?
You can. Sure.
Yes, you'll just want to make sure the microphone's on. State your name and address, please.
Yeah, Alan W. Feeney, 2019 East Mountain Road, Westfield.
Cool. And this is for 2 Feeney Road in Holyoke. So you do not reside here?
No, well, my property is adjacent to the
Okay.
to the Holyoke
Just right on
property.
the line.
I own all the surrounding properties.
Okay. And did you also already receive this Board of Health?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I want to proceed with a perk test before I start doing all the other processes.
Okay.
So we know that it perks, and then we'll comply with all the rest of the permit requirements.
Do we have questions from anyone in the chambers or on the committee?
So
Counselor Devine?
these criteria, those have to be met?
Yes.
Okay, but have any of them been met yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We can't do the perk because the ground's frozen.
True.
So I got in touch with the engineer for the
Yeah.
perk, and as soon as the ground is thawed, we'll do the perk, and then we get a hold of the health department to come and examine the perk.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good idea to table it at some point after we're done with the.
Other questions? Counselor Bartley?
I just want to hear the plan.
Yeah. What is the plan, Mr. Feeney?
To make a family cemetery.
Yeah, why don't you go into some details? So what the size of it, where, because
It's going to be like probably a 30 by 50 cutout.
30 by 50
Yeah.
yards?
Feet.
Feet, 30
Yeah.
by 50 feet,
Yeah.
okay. And then, did you didn't, I didn't see you delineate the exact boundaries on what was provided to the committee.
No, not yet. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
I want to get the perk.
No, Roger.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're planning on doing that?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yes.
Yeah, that's important. And then
Yeah.
how many plots would it?
David?
Probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6.
No, I got that, thank you.
6 spots. I don't know who's, but as time goes on, less people are going to get buried. They're all going to, they're going to be ashes. So,
But the plan is a 30 by 50
Yeah.
carve out,
yeah,
and you think that could hold 6
yeah, at least, yeah,
at least?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And would there be headstones and markers and?
Yeah, probably, yeah, there'll be headstones.
Okay, and is it visible from the road?
No, no. No,
Okay,
but it's on an old pasture land that we don't farm no more. It's up on a hill, but it's flat where I want to place it.
Yeah, so those are the kind of things that I think would be helpful to me when I make,
Yeah.
when I make an informed vote.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, I'm going to be predisposed to supporting this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't I be?
Yeah.
But I just certainly want to get the details.
And it'll be a traditional burial with vaults in caskets.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. And just one last question: Who came up? Why?
Well, years ago, I was watching a TV show, and they said you could bury yourself on your own property. So I said, I've got plenty of property. Why go buy a plot? And I'll be there forever.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, I mean, obviously your name is New England famous. I
Yeah.
can't say world famous.
Yeah, well, it could have been too. I don't know.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't travel as much as
Yeah.
our other elected officials. I don't get
Yeah.
invited to Ireland. But I will say, if you can just give as much detail on that, just on a narrative, that would
Yeah.
help me.
Yeah.
As well as the to-do list provided by the health inspector.
Right. I own the property right next to it, and I'm going to have access to the site from the Westfield property. There's a driveway there.
So that's another. So,
Yeah.
so no one from the public can access that unless they trespass your property.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. See that should be. See that's not spelled out in there.
Yeah. Well, I can access it too from the Holyoke side, but my house is right there.
You can access
Yeah.
it, but the public can't.
No,
access
no.
it. I'm gathering that, but see, I don't know that until you tell me that.
Yeah, yeah.
You didn't tell me that in the writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just the little things that help.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, Counselor Bartley. Any other questions from the committee? Counselor
Not a
Devine?
question as much as it does say, last sentence says, an alternative suggestion would be that, and this is from the Board of Health, that the committee continues this application process until the applicant is able to receive the Holyoke Board of Health's official written approval. So I think that's where we need to go. And there is a lot of different things that you need to do. And
Yeah.
I certainly know where your property is, and
Yeah.
there may be some other people here that know that as Holyoke people. So,
Yeah.
Counselor Sullivan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I agree with Counselor Devine, and I would suggest that maybe we table it, but give you, when you come back, also bring some pictures of where it's going to be. It might help the
Yeah.
community to visualize it, that it's not visible from the road and it's not
Yeah, right,
accessible
right.
to the public.
Well,
or
I did
abutting the
submit
back
some
of
Google
somebody's-
Maps, but I have
Somebody
to-
else's backyard or swimming pool, so.
Yeah. Oh no, it's not near anybody but me.
Yeah.
There's
A
nobody
couple of
next to
photos
them.
might be.
We own about 100-something acres there, I think, Westfield and Holyoke.
Yeah.
Thank
we
you.
have to continue
Counselor.
this to a date certain.
Yeah.
So the public hearing's still open. We don't have anyone to speak on that. Our next meeting is April 8th. We're not scheduled out farther than that currently, so we'd have to continue it to then. I understand you may not have a lot of new information.
So if
but-
I don't have it, I'll get back in touch with you
Yeah, we can continue it
Continue it,
again.
yeah.
to have it continued.
Counselor Sullivan?
Well, that's what I was going to suggest. Should we give this one more than 30 days,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit.
It's
gonna take a while.
Yeah.
You did certain, Mike.
Right, we only have a next meeting scheduled, so it has to be continued to then, but I will work on a farther date out for the next meeting to extend it a little further, and that way you don't have to, if you're not ready, you don't need to come in
Yeah,
and
so I'll just
appear
make a
again.
phone call and let you know that
Yeah.
we won't be here.
Right,
Okay.
that would be fine. I can reach out to you when we have another date in the
All right.
future to let
Yeah,
you know too.
Very good.
Counselor Bartley?
Just to the chair,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't go into a Dunkin' Donuts situation again.
That was not my fault.
That was absolutely not your fault.
Private joke.
No one's casting aspersions here at all. It was not, you untangled it, if anyone did. No, I would just say, just to you, if you could have the applicant speak directly to Jeff on a regular basis,
Okay,
but you're gonna have to continue it. Then once you have your scheduled date set,
you might go back to Mr. Feeney and say, well, we're gonna meet in May, but he may say, I won't be ready till July. So
Right.
That way you don't have to continually put it on an agenda, just keep it organized, as opposed to what we did with Dunkin' Donuts and just got strung along for 2 years.
Yeah, well, they had a lot of people involved, so
There you go.
I hear you. Thank you, Counselor
Feeney
Bartley.
people.
I was just gonna ask, Mr. Feeney, the phone numbers on here, the home and the other, phone number are the best contact for you?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so, yeah, we'll reach out, either Jeff or myself.
Okay,
All
yep.
right, so the motion
To table this until April 8th?
to continue the public hearing
Until April
to,
8th?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, this has been continued. We will be in touch. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Counselor Bartley?
just a point of order, if I may.
Yeah,
I know, I don't want you to skip anything from me. I know you got the pilot and all the rest of that, I realize, but I can't stay. But I did just want to point out quickly on the 8 and 9, I don't have a problem with either one of them. I think they're good. And then on 6 and, no. Yeah, that's 6, 8, 9. On 7, I'm going to let Mike sort of run with that, because Mike knows, I assume they're coming. I'll try to zoom in or when, for number 7.
all right.
So,
So Bartley approves of 6, 8, and 9.
yeah, they're good.
Okay.
They're real good. And
Got
then,
it.
4 and 5 I'll have a comment on, but that'll be depending what the committee does later on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Bartley.
Thank you.
I'm just making a quick note here.
Okay.
8.
Motion to take up item 4, if you're ready?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
We're
Item
finally here.
Item 4, in the interest of transparency, order that the Collins Center for Public Management present its findings working with Holyoke's Government Restructure Advisory Council on payments in lieu of taxes or pilots. Some cities and towns, like Boston and Brookline, develop formal pilot policies where the municipality asks the nonprofit to pay a portion of the taxes their tax-exempt property would have paid if it wasn't tax-exempt. Springfield and Concord are exploring the need for pilot policies. Holyoke has hundreds of tax-exempt properties, including group homes, charities, drug recovery agencies, hospitals, healthcare centers, churches, schools, colleges, and more that were included in this study. All right, well,
Could we package it with number 5? Sorry.
oh yeah.
Make a
probably.
motion to package it with number 5. That's 4 and 5.
Second.
And I'm, oh, go ahead.
All in favor of packaging items 4 and 5?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right,
And if I can make a motion to have the mayor make some introductions?
Second.
all right. Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, counselors, and thank you so much. First of all, I'm very excited to be here at this moment for all of us to review and receive this. I wouldn't necessarily call it a final report because it's a working document, and as things evolve, it'll continue to be updated. The Cullen Center, as you recall, the City Council supported a line item transfer to contract with an institution that we procured. In this case, it was the Cullen Center, to do some sort of feasibility analysis and provide recommendations, establish policy, and how we mitigate pilot with tax-exempt organizations within the city of Holyoke. Pilot, for anybody watching at home, that's acronyms for payment in lieu of taxes. Tax-exempt properties, which the gentleman here, Stephen, will get into, is, under the law, there are different definitions under the law about what constitutes a tax exemption, which means you're an organization, you don't have to pay any taxes, local property tax, in the community that you're serving. The Government Restructuring Committee was a committee that was put together very earlier on when I first got elected, and it's the one of, I think, 6 or 7 different advisory groups, and I think this one continues to meet. I think you survived all the other ones. And I don't know if any of them are with us online. Certainly Councilor Devine and Stephen Fay, together with our chairman, John Wellahan, and a handful of others that, Steve, if you can just take a moment and acknowledge each person, or even Councilor Devine, that are on that committee, because I want to be sure for the record and people at home know the people that have been working together through this with the Cullen Center, so that they get some credit here. Here we have Stephen Cirillo. Stephen Cirillo, who's gonna present this report. And just so you're aware, prior to contracting with the Cullen Center, myself and the city solicitor Lisa Ball have been approaching different tax exempt organizations and beginning the discussions around getting commitments for pilot payments, those that have been pilot payments, getting commitments for an increase. And the one kind of knot we keep getting into in these discussions is like, we don't have like a systematic, uniformed approach when approaching these organizations. And so, out of fairness, we thought, let's put these conversations on pause, work with the council, secure the funds, get some help, and see if we can button this up just a little bit so that it's much more organized and it doesn't seem or feel like a shakedown. It's a very political conversation. Tax exempt organizations by law don't have to pay at all anything. But certainly if we approach this correctly, we can get organizations on board, and we have got some, but we can get organizations on board with understanding why we're doing this and buying into the policy, paying some sort of pilot to the city to support, city services. So just really quickly, Steve, if you can just identify, or Councilor Devine, if you can just identify who's on that committee?
Yeah, besides myself, Stephen, from your office, Nancy Creed, I'm not sure if everybody knows Nancy, and Helene Florio, who is the president of the Holyoke Taxpayers Association, and Jay Willahan. We've been meeting quite regularly. It's a great committee, and I've learned a lot about this, and I think the mayor is correct. You don't go in with guns blazing. You sit down, you talk to people. We looked at things like, how often does a nonprofit, say, use the fire department? How often do they use the water department, the police department, that type of thing? And sometimes by giving that information, they might turn around and say, you're right, let's talk and see what we can help the city with, since the city's been so good to us. So it's something like that.
And if I may, there's one other member we want to mention, Johan Rochevega.
Who?
Johan.
Oh, yes, you're right, thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and while that being said, and I know that this has been well before me, a long-standing conversation in the city with previous councilors, previous mayors on how to tackle this issue. I'm trying to approach it from the bottom up, again, systematically, in a way that makes sense, achieves buy-in, so that we can get to the end goal of getting organizations with committing to paying some sort of a pilot. So with that being said, it is my honor to introduce to all of you, Stephen from the Cullen Center.
Well, I guess I hit this button here.
Yeah. Yes.
First, if Jeff could allow me to share the screen. It's not,
You should be all set.
it is not happening.
All right, let me come out and take a look.
Okay, well, he's doing that. Let me just do a little introduction.
Yeah.
First of all, my name is Stephen Cirillo, and I am representing the Edward Cullen Center for Public Management. The center was established in 2008, and its charge, what it was dedicated to, is to improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and governance of cities and towns. We have, in fact, worked with 75% of the cities and towns in the Commonwealth. We've had more than 1,100 projects. Projects in the area of public finance. I'm in the public finance area, so I do forecasting, capital budgeting, financial policies. But there are others as well. There is the HR, IT, organization structures, things of that nature. Why isn't it sharing?
The browser is preventing your access to your share screen.
Something with the browser. All right. Um, While he's doing that, I'm going to do a little dancing.
With or without music?
Yeah. Let's talk about the Collins Center, the participants in the Collins Center. There's 3 people on our team. The first one was Joanne Graciano. She's retired. She joined the Collins Center about 3 years ago, and she was the director of the Bureau of Assessment for the Department of Revenue. So she knows her way around taxation issues. Thank you very much, Jeff. The second person involved is Patricia Lloyd, who's an attorney and a grant writer. I'm the project manager. I guess I should tell you a little bit about myself, particularly as it pertains to pilots. First of all, I started my career in 1972, a long time ago, as an elected official on a school committee. I was 19.
Wow.
I went to graduate school at Syracuse University. I worked in New York City budget office before going to the town of Brookline as the budget analyst. And I put the first Proposition 2.5 budget together back then. I was hired. Went on to be the budget director of the city of Newton. Later on became the treasurer collector of Newton. Then went back to the town of Brookline for my second review and was first the deputy town administrator and then ended up being the finance director. Now, with that said, in that time, I was able to negotiate pilot contracts. One in the city of Newton with Boston College. It was one of my lesser works. I'll be quite honest with you. Right after that was around in 1988, 89. The Department of Revenue asked me to write a training manual for cities and towns on how to negotiate pilots. Was, again, one of my lesser works. When I went to Brookline as the finance director, one of the things that cities and towns do is if they believe that they're facing an override, they form a committee to try to find ways to find efficiencies so they could either reduce the amount of the override or even eliminate it altogether. And in Brookline in 2008, Brookline formed this committee, and one of the things that came out of it is they wanted to pursue pilots. And so, as the finance director, I was tasked with that work. And from about 2010 through 2016, when I retired, I successfully negotiated 22 pilot agreements, all in writing. The big ones were Boston University Children's Hospital, Beaver Country Day, Pine Manor College, was another college in there, Newberry College, 5 religious institutions, 22 in all. So I know how to do it. Our task here this evening was just to analyze whether it was feasible to develop a program, a pilot program for the city of Holyoke. And, you know, I'm an enthusiast as far as pilots, so I always believe that it's feasible to do such a thing. So I want to take you, first of all, someone asked a question online, what is a pilot? A pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes. As the mayor has mentioned, tax-exempt parcels by law, by Chapter 59, Section 8 of the Mass General Law, do not have to pay taxes. They were giving that incentive to encourage them to come into the state and into communities because the Commonwealth believed that it added to the quality of life of the citizens of the state and the citizens of communities. And I'm sure that you all believe that a lot of your nonprofits are adding to the quality of life. So let us go on to the PowerPoint now, if this will work. Why isn't this working? All right, I'm gonna try it. All right, our team objective, we're gonna talk about team objectives, methodology, and policy recommendations. The team objective is to see if it's feasible to have a pilot policy within the city. And in fact, it is. There are pilot programs in nearly every city and town in the Commonwealth. The problem is that other than a few communities that have thought about this and put a plan in place, the methodology is all over the map. And when you have different voices speaking about different proposals for pilots, it ends up weakening the ask with the nonprofit. They don't know what to believe. We, the governments, are confused about how to approach this, and the tax-exempt parcels see that and say, well, you don't have a plan in place, so we're not going to do this. But there are a few communities that have now developed proposals, policies to do this. Now, how did we do it? We reviewed all of the data, and there was a lot of data. You have 900 tax-exempt parcels in this.
In Holyoke?
In Holyoke.
900.
It might be 1,000. But
Parcels?
half of them, parcels, but half of them, more than half of them, are owned by the city. So you have to take that into consideration. We looked at all of the data. We tried to sort it into categories. You have, of course, you have tax exempts that are for specific purposes that are given an exemption based on law. You have medical, you have charitable, you have religious, number of types of uses that are given that incentive of not paying taxes. So we had to look at all of them. We tried to clean the data up a bit, and we, as attachment to this report, there's a spreadsheet that we have presented that will give you the whole list of all 1,000 parcels. We break up the city-owned land, the city, state, and federal-owned land. We drop down to below. And so we isolate what I call the tax-exempt parcels that potentially could be made an offer for a pilot agreement. So we've done that. That's part of the database that you have. And finally, we're going to provide recommendations on how to go about this. So with that, the methodology. This is, I think, the most important thing. And this comes from the many years of success and failures to negotiate pilot agreements. Why this item, revenue source, hasn't taken off as well as it could is because different cities and towns approach it differently. I mentioned to you that, in fact, that there is a handful of communities have actually gone beyond that and put together policies and practices to make it fair to everybody. And so the proposal we have, and from my experience I have, pilots should be based on the value of the property. So the Board of Assessors provides values to the taxable parcels, but they also are required by law to provide values on the tax-exempt parcels. And so part of that spreadsheet that we offered you, it shows not only these 1,000 parcels that are tax-exempt, but we calculated what the tax would have been if they paid 100% tax. And that was what potentially, more than potentially, the city is losing in taxation because of the exemption. And then, because pilots are never 100%, I've negotiated 100% pilots, but pilots are not 100% because the tax-exempt parcels don't use all the services that are provided by the city of Holyoke. Many of them don't use the public schools, they don't use parks, they don't use the libraries, but they do use three very important services that are offered by the community. And this methodology is also used in Boston, Brookline, I believe Northampton, and the town of Milton. They've all come to this conclusion, is that if you look at the cost to the city, Holyoke, of the police department, the fire department, and public works department, road maintenance and snow removal, with full benefits, usually that represents about 25% of the levy. And so, City of Boston, Town of Brookline, Northampton, Milton, believe that the target amount that communities should be asking the tax exempt for pilot amount should be 25% of what they would have paid if they paid taxes. That's why we went through this rigmarole of making sure that we knew what the value of the property was. We had to wait until really early January to get the final data because your assessing department was in the middle of submitting it to the state. So we got the current 2025 values, which is right up to date, and we calculated what the tax rate would have been if they were fully taxable. Then we applied 25%, and therefore we come up with a determination of if all of these tax exempts were able to pay a pilot and were willing to pay 25%, the city would generate X amount of dollars. That's the methodology we use. Now, again, the reasoning is clear. Many communities don't have this methodology. They mean well. They go to talk to the tax exempt parcel. They talk, they negotiate, and they might strike an agreement. I know the city of Holyoke has 7 or 8 pilots that are under contract, or not under contract, but are reached an agreement right now. But this methodology is only used by a handful of communities, but it's really getting out there now. As a matter of fact, there's been a bill submitted to the state legislature for the last 5 years, maybe longer, that is petitioning the general court to mandate a pilot of 25%. So that's probably the target amount that is going to be most communities, when they enter a pilot, will ultimately get to that 25%. Now, there's another concept. City of Boston created this concept back in 1991, I think. And they said, and by the way, the town of Brookline adopted it as well, that there are some tax exempt parcels that are extremely low in value. The City of Boston, the town of Brookline, based it on what value of those small parcels were, and said anything under this value, the pilot target would be 15% rather than 25%. Now, that takes the pressure off these small tax exempts who are struggling, and they would be hard to meet the 25% target amount. The larger tax exempts, they can do it. They don't want to do it. They'll claim that they don't have any money to do it, but they can do it. But that's a consideration that the city of Holyoke should make when you're determining or adopting a policy on how you're going to go about doing this work. Now, just to give you where we got our data, we went to the assessing department. I think we're going to have to give your chairman of your board of assessors a couple of days off because we were just driving her crazy. Right in the middle of her busiest season, we were calling her every single day, and I felt really bad about that.
If you wouldn't mind, I think there's a question. Councilor Devine?
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm looking over the tax exempt parcels that are pilot targets, and these are owned by the city of Holyoke. if the city of Holyoke sells any of these properties, can they put a pilot on those before it's sold?
Well, first of all, if a land is tax exempt, it doesn't matter if it's owned by the city or any other tax exempt, and that land is sold, if it's sold to a for profit, a taxable parcel, it then becomes taxable. It's called new growth development. It's a wonderful thing to happen. If a parcel is from a tax exempt current owner is sold to another tax exempt, it is not taxable. It's still tax exempt. I've had agreements in some of my pilots that said, I think with either Pine Manor or one of the colleges there in Brookline, that if they ever sold some of their parcels to another tax exempt, say another college, which actually Pine Manor was taken over by UMass Boston, UMass Amherst, that has to remain in effect. The pilot has to remain in effect. So I assume Brookline is following up on that. I left before Pine Manor was sold, so I don't know how they did that.
Thank you.
So again, we used the Division of Local Services Data Bank, and we reviewed case studies of other communities who had pilots. Now this is Holyoke. This parcel this slide right here. This is percentage of assessed value for property class, and you see residential dominates. You have no open space. You have commercial space of 14%, industrial of 2%, personal property of 2%, and tax-exempt parcels, the real tax-exempt parcels, of 16%. And in that 16%, 57% is owned by the city itself. So it's a very small group of targets that you potentially have. Now, here's the property tax reliance, and obviously the pressure is building on your residential homes. You have a small tax base, commercial and industrial tax base. You have a pretty good personal property tax base for the total taxable value of $3 billion. And here's the overall categories of tax exempt. You have, again, that 57% is owned by the city, state, and federal government. That's 57% of that 16%. And then you have Holyoke authorities, usually the housing authority. That's another 19% of the 16%. And the charitables and religious, that's the 24%, the last three lines, are really the potential targets that you could have. Again, it's a very small amount, but it would be meaningful because these are dollars that would occur.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, so Steve, your first bracket there, the 57%.
Yeah.
City, state, and federal, right? Can we break that down of how much get the state and federal part out of there, especially the state part?
I can't do it right now, but yes, it's a matter of fact on the database, that Excel spreadsheet that we attached, we break it down that way.
All right, because just 2 months ago at the Mass Municipal Association, there's been a drive to redo the formula for state-owned properties.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know where it is. I know what they're trying to do right now wouldn't affect I forget which chapter it is, chapter something 90 monies or whatever, cherry sheet, whatever they want to term it, but it's a pretty significant number. It includes places like the Mount Tom State Reservation, right? And then what came to my attention is there's others also, and I see 0 for open space, but where some of these other ones fall in and who owns them, like trustees of reservations, Kestrel Land Trust, others where they've acquired city properties and stuff, and the state, they don't fall under the state formula either.
No, they don't. As a matter of fact, I believe the next spreadsheet, yes, you have, in this next spreadsheet or slide, you have item E, state-owned land non-reimbursable and state-owned land reimbursable. That's what you're referencing. The state-owned land that the state is not reimbursing, they own, the value is $28,751,000, and the state isn't reimbursing.
Right,
And then there's a piece that's owned reimbursable, and that's coming into the treasury of the city as other revenue or local receipts. But that's been uneven. That's the thing that I think a lot of communities are complaining of. One time, the state gives you X dollars, and the next year, they reduce it down, and the formula definitely needs to be repaired.
Well, I'm glad you are familiar with Brookline, because I believe Brookline was getting something to the tune of $9,000 an acre in reimbursement, and we're getting like $38 or something per acre. It's just a really messed up formula.
Yeah, it should be changed.
So it's, yeah.
And it should be fair. It shouldn't be. There's nothing in Brookline. Well, the land value per foot in Brookline is high, so some of that is due to that.
I get that, but at the same time, we're reading articles in the wonderful Boston Globe about how much more valuable for carbon, sequestration stuff, open space and wetlands is, yet they're not willing to recognize it.
I agree.
And compensate us appropriately.
Yeah.
So I think this is something we really need to lean on our state reps, our state senators.
Absolutely.
And not just here, but it's affecting a lot of our surrounding communities are in that same bucket as well.
Particularly in Western Mass.
Yes.
I don't know, it's not just Holyoke, it's Western Mass.
Yeah, and by this new formula, I'm seeing some of the hill towns out in the Berkshires are going to look at significant, 300, 400, 500% increases, but it's still going to be an insignificant amount of money.
Yeah, well, 500% increase for $38 is not a lot.
Yeah, they're getting $5 an acre for like Beartown State Forest, so. All right, and so I just did some quick math, and if I can find it again quick, the one you're talking about, the ones we're not getting reimbursed for.
Yeah, it's about
right?
halfway down.
The 28 million. I can't find my cheat sheet now, but off the top of my head, it was a little over $1,047,000 in revenue that we're not receiving at the commercial rate.
If you apply a commercial rate to it,
Yeah.
I mean, some of the property has buildings on it, and some of it, like Mount Tom, is a lot more wide open. It might be an open space rate if there is an open space rate.
Right.
You're right. These are the tax exempt categories. We try to break the value down to give you a sense of it. You see the municipal values again, the charitable values. Again, we talked about this 13% of 16%, but it still adds up to a lot. Look at $77,400,000 is the value. If you divide that by 1,000 and multiply it by a tax rate,
38.55.
Yeah, that's a significant amount. And even if you apply a 25% pilot to that, that could really benefit Holyoke. That's not to say that every tax exempt will do this. The city has to be persistent, and this is a long haul. It took me 5 years to negotiate the pilot agreement with Boston University. We finally realized what the roadblock was, and when we figured out why we were missing each other in a conversation, it took about 4 hours. That's why your negotiating team, pick them wisely. That's important. All right, here are the existing pilots. This was given to us by the city. There were more on there, but a couple of them were not pilots. A couple of them were TIFs, tax incentive things. One here is it's the fourth one down, Veolia. I'm not even sure that's a pilot because we couldn't find a parcel that they own in the city. So they might be paying a pilot for use without having actually owned property. You see that some of them are under contract. You see others are not under contract. The city's done well with these pilots, particularly with the gas and electric. That big number is because, of course, they have all of that personal property and infrastructure there. And they realize that as well, so.
So I think I can answer the question on the Veolia. They operate our wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
And they have their offices and personnel there.
But it's your land?
Right.
Yeah, okay. So it's here. I don't know why they're paying $75,000 a pilot, but they are. So good, and it's under contract.
Yep. So my question on these, the most egregious one here to me is the Mass Green High Performance Computing Center. First of all, the assessment being at $5 million would be just the building itself.
Yeah.
There's no assessment on the real property, which would probably be in the $100 million range.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, I want to make what is the end date on this pilot?
There may be an end date. There may not be an end
I've
date.
been asking for years to try and get that from our law department, from everybody, and nobody's been able to show us the actual end date.
May not be an end date.
Right. Sorry.
So-
Madam Chair.
Yep.
Just
Yes.
a lot of these pilots, Counselor, were handshake agreements with no actual contract. Like, for example, the Green Performance Center that you're talking about, ISO New England. These were agreements that were made at the time with previous mayors.
Yeah.
But they were handshake agreements, and then they
No
just,
methodology.
with no methodology, they were just negotiated, whatever the dollar amount was. And then it just became in their budget, just a recurring payment that they make every year, just kind of automatic. And to your point, Counselor, like we, in our systematic approach, we want in writing some sort of arrangement that identifies the term, that identifies the dollar amount, the formula, and so forth, like other contracts. So
When I wrote my contracts and negotiated my contracts in Brookline, I made sure that the language of the contract said something along the lines that 6 months before the end of this agreement, the two sides would get together to renegotiate and extend the agreement further. And so it was an ongoing type of thing. Second of all, again, the mayor is correct. These were done well before anybody talked about methodology. Now imagine if you use the methodology of values divided by 1,000, come up with a tax rate and apply 25% on, there would be more that you could gain out of this. But that means that you have to go, not only are you looking at new pilots, you have to go back to the old agreements and start reviewing them as well.
And just so you're aware too, like Lisa was able to, so Holyoke Gas and Electric didn't have one. Western Mass Training Consortium didn't have one. I see now we have one for the Green High Performance Center. These were things that we were able to do recently that didn't exist before. So those that, a lot of these yeses here, with the exception to probably one, I can't remember which one it was, we now have a contract because Lisa was able to, get one together with them.
Okay, but we do not have a contract with the MGHPCC.
Well, it says here there's a Y, so I think we do have one, and that can be because, again, Lisa was able to land one. But yeah, we want to make sure we get these in writing for sure.
Okay, I'm a little lost there already. It says here, yes, we have a written contract.
Right. So it says yes because I believe this is one of the ones that Lisa was able to. It didn't exist before and was able to get one in writing. But either way, whether there's terms or not, and I guess this question is really is for you, is if there is a term, what is it, does that legally bind them within that term, and then after that not have to pay any, like, what is the?
I don't think it's possible to have a contract that just doesn't have a term. It has to have a term. Terms I usually placed in my contracts were 5 to 10 years. But again, I made sure that the language suggested that
Renegotiation.
6 months before we are renewing this contract. The other thing is that the mayor said something interesting about these contracts. He said that, they just hand agreement, handshake agreement, and that it's in their budget and that's it. With the methodology we're proposing, these numbers change. Your pilot numbers change because every year the value of the property is going up. And so if the property goes up, you're not going to have a tax exempt that's currently paying a pilot, which will have a flat amount. It'll grow with the values of the growth of the other parcels in the community. That's important. A lot of communities don't realize that, but it's a very good positive thing.
So I really want to hammer home on the computing center, though. What are our options here? I mean, I'm not seeing, we now have a contract with them, but there's no term to it. And it's still for the same amount as what they've been getting away with murder for 10 years?
So
Harvard, I mean, tell me, Harvard, MIT, billions and billions and billions of dollars in endowment, and they're going to give us $80,000 a year on a $100 million facility? And one cheesy scholarship for one student out of the 5 universities?
When you put a policy in place,
That's right.
and there's 2 tracks. One of the tracks is you're going to go after new tax exempt. The other track is you have to revisit the existing pilots and convert them to the policy and methodology, which will change these numbers.
So, and that's why we're doing this, Counselor, is number one, we want to understand the situation as it exists and take a comprehensive, holistic approach in how we want to, navigate getting folks to agree to pay pilot payments. And I do agree. And it's not just the computing center, ISO New England, right? Like, and, many other organizations that you got CEOs that are getting paid more than $300,000, maybe even more than that, right? Like I'm in agreement with you. And so what he's saying is a potential policy where we encourage tax exempt organizations to pay 25% of what they would pay in taxes. And so it doesn't lock a dollar amount. So it doesn't say instead of 25%, it's 100,000 or 80,000.
There's no number that's locked.
It's a percentage.
Percentage is locked.
Now, the tricky thing behind this is, they don't have to do it, right? Like they're protected on the laws. Part of the conversation I have been having, and this is where the politics come in, telling organizations politically, I don't have to support organizations that don't want to agree to pay a pilot. Now, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't at all mean services, right? We're going to provide services regardless. The building department, the Board of Health, police, like we're going to do services. There's no way that'll ever get in the middle of that. But you want to get prioritized in front of the governor for funding. You need a letter of support from the mayor's office for something. You want to go to a ribbon cutting for, if and when we do get to a point we roll out a policy, we're going to identify the organizations that, hey, here are the organizations that has agreed to pay that, and here are those that are saying no. And whatever publicity they get from that puts pressure from investors or whatever the case. And then you got smaller nonprofits, right? You got organizations all doing incredibly important work, the health center, the Boys and Girls Clubs, the Girls Inc., and you know, that have long-standing relationships with counselors and other, where the mayor will take a strong position in saying, I'm sorry, if we can't agree to pay a pilot, I cannot support that letter of support or that dollar amount that for that grant that you get from the state, or you want to get in front of the governor, or and that applies a little bit of pressure politically to get people to come around. This systematic approach, though, it's to de-escalate that from happening and say, hey, how do we come to the table and understand why we're doing this and see what it is that you can do. Beyond the 25%, we have to, for those small organizations, like we heard from, I think you said Boston, if there's a certain value, maybe it's a lesser amount. So some of these nonprofits rely solely on donations versus others that have ratepayers. You know, how do we treat those? Maybe instead of 25%, it can be the 15% that I think Boston does. Or maybe it's nothing, depending on the size or the value or how much revenue they bring in. One thing that I learned with conversations with Lisa and these nonprofits is each one has a very different funding scheme, where there are unknowns. Like, for example, the Housing Authority solely relies on the federal government, and then a small dollar amount they collect in revenue from tenants based on whatever their income levels are. It's not much. They've had a couple of good years. It looks like now they're going to be going into some, depending on what happens during this current administration and funding support they offer for housing authorities, that can give them a couple of bad years. The Western Mass Training Consortium, we got them to agree to pay 100% of their property tax, and it's a small dollar. They only own 2-3 properties in town, with the caveat that if there is an off year and they can prove it, that they can pay less or nothing. You know, I thought that was a learning experience for me. Like, wow, you mean to tell me you can pay 100%, but I can agree that if you have an off year, we can scale. So that's in their agreement. So there's some flexibility in how we do this, but to the point we're trying to achieve with this report and how we want to proceed forward is, it's got to be systematic. We have to be unified, both the council, the legislative and the executive side, on the policy, because there is politics involved, and we want to make sure that the message is clear. If you want to do business with the city, these services for the city, there is an expectation of honoring the policy. So,
one thing I would say to that is that the Collins Center will not make a recommendation to Holyoke on what the level is of that 15% versus 25%. What the value is it
it's tricky.
$200,000? Is it $500,000? Brookline was $3.5 million, and it would go up percentage-wise 2.5% a year. You cannot, I don't think that you can say, if you're at a certain level, zero, and because that would create political problems. The larger ones, larger tax exempts will say, no, you're going after us and you're not going after everybody else. So there has to be a policy that, at least on paper, treats everybody equally. Now, you have about 700 tax exempt parcels. Chances are you're not going to go after the little one for about 10, 50, 60 years. So that's not an issue. You don't have to say zero because, you know, you have a long line of things, tax exempts that you want to have discussions with. Avoid that.
So the point I'm going to continue, and I think this is great work. I think we're on the right track. But I don't want to start thinking about the Holyoke YMCA or some of the other nonprofits in the same light as Harvard and MIT, all right? Where, as we've said, the presidents and the board of trustees are walking away with millions of dollars themselves in salaries, right? The quick math on this, and if you take all of these other, I'm looking at the bottom line here, the 25%, it's a little over $1 million $1.8 million if we were successful with every one of them at 25%. Chasing,
That's not gonna happen, but.
chasing, huh?
That won't.
No, I would hope not, because there's some there I think deserve
That's that
a
cutoff.
get out of jail free card.
That's the
but-
different term, 25 versus 15.
Yeah. But my point here is with this particular organization, right? Even at the 25% rate, right? They should be paying $963,750 in taxes.
This organization, and not the Girl Scouts.
The high-speed computing center.
How much? Did you say it again?
$963,750 is what, at 25%, that's what they should be paying.
And what are they paying?
80 grand.
80 grand.
80, okay.
And we get one scholarship to one institution.
And they also
Kid
provide
qualifies.
Yeah,
database, internet, some sort of storage for
Again,
the school district.
I really appreciate those words, in the right direction, but I really want to get some focus in the community and everything else, is who we're really hosting here and the way this city is being taken advantage of, all right? They're here for one reason and one reason only, all right? Our low our low electric rate and the fact that it's green hydropower that they're buying, all right? That it's green energy and they're getting it dirt cheap. This is money we could be putting up on the grid. This is money that would keep the rates down for Holyoke rate users, that could be used to attract other businesses like we're seeing now coming out of Greentown Labs and some of these other nice places. Even we're getting recognized in Europe as a place for green energy. And these people are using it. They employ no one. What, a handful, maybe a few janitors, and contribute nothing to our tax base.
I agree with you. However, we'll go back to the point that the mayor made
Yep.
initially. They don't have to pay. And so you have to find an approach, a reasonable approach that would get them to a higher number. And later on in the presentation, we're going to make a recommendation to you on what that approach should be.
Thank you,
All right,
Councilor
let's
Sullivan.
move on.
Mhm.
This froze again. Why is it freezing? All right, let's try this again. Now on to the policy recommendations. We did this in two tracks, two areas. The first area is really the assessing department. The second area is the central office of the negotiating team. Right? The first thing we're saying is that the city should annually review and update the tax-exempt parcels. We poured over them. As a matter of fact, the greatest amount of time consumed in this project was going over those 1,000 tax exempts, trying to get them into the right category, checking to make sure if they were tax exempt, and getting the proper values in place. So the first thing to do is to get that information, get that annual review of the tax exempt parcels to make sure that they qualify. There's a property, several properties, about 12, 15 properties owned by the railroad. It's not a tax exempt, it's a private company, it's a commercial company. The law says that there's an exemption of land X feet from the tracks. And so we've asked the assessor, and she said that she's gonna do it in the next year. She's gonna review all of that to find out if some of that value, and a tremendous amount of value there in that particular one, can be taxable. It wouldn't be exempt, it wouldn't be a pilot again, but it would be new growth development, which is the same thing. Matter of fact, even better, because you don't need a contract for it. But that's the type of thing that has to be cleared up. Second of all, we consistently apply the codes. We looked at your list of tax exempt 1,000. It was easy to pick out owned by the city of Holyoke. But when we got to these names of development, something, we didn't know what they were. And we really, for the longest period of time, it's a jigsaw puzzle trying to, these are religious institutions, these are medical institutions, these are charitable institutions, these are veterans of foreign war institutions. Try to sort them in a way We didn't get it all done because we just didn't know what they all were. So that's something the Board of Assessors should be doing. And then annually update the values of the tax exempts. The city hadn't done it for a while. By the way, this is no shot at the city. Most cities and towns don't do it because the assessors are overworked and they see there's no value in spending all their time assessing these tax exempts because the city or town is not going to get any money from it. However, under this methodology, where the pilot is based on value, there is a reason for getting all of the data updated on an annual basis. So we really encourage the city to do that. Finally, area 2, that's the central office, I guess I would call it, the central administration. You have to pick a negotiating team. I think the mayor is a great negotiator. I think he should be on the team. You do not necessarily have to have the assessor on the team. As long as the assessor is there to support the negotiating team, that's fine. Because the data is from the assessing office. You don't want to have 50 people go in the negotiating team. You want to keep it small. We don't want, I was working with a neighbor of yours. We're working on a pilot project for a neighbor of yours. And they wanted to create a negotiating team with 15, 20 people on it. And I had to spend a lot of time convincing them that that wasn't going to work.
No.
They love their government, so. So anyway, you have to do that. The next thing is what I would call really the most important thing, establishing that methodology. We recommend 25%. I've given you the justification for it. We also recommended potentially that you could go down to a lower level for small ones, smaller institutions. But you should, of all of the ones in the category of potential pilot agreements, all of them should be included in this policy that you're going to establish, that says this is the policy. You're going to be at 25%, or you're going to be at 15%. And again, if the politics of that small group, the small, tiny ones, you're probably going to come up with a list of 10 to 20 parcels targets, and you're going to go after them. And you know, it's going to be a long time before you get to the smaller ones. I would say to you that you do not want to forget about the small ones because it's important to get the low-hanging fruit, if you will. If you could get a small tax exempt to pay a pilot, you could then go to the larger ones and say, see, these smaller ones are doing it, why aren't you doing it?
And he's exactly right, because that's what we did, and it worked. Either other larger ones agreed to increase or whatever, and others didn't close the door on me. They said, you know what I mean? So so like I told you about the consortium, they owned, I think, like 3 group homes in town, and they weren't paying anything in taxes under their tax exemption law, and they agreed to pay 100% of the property tax with that condition I explained earlier, which was a learning experience for me and Lisa. At that point, we moved forward with other organization and said, hey, if these folks, you can do it, you're certainly much more healthier than these organizations, you can do it too. And we do have other, like Valley Opportunity Council pays 100% property tax. And Steve Huntley, he's amazing, he's great.
Yep.
You know, as an ambassador of why it's important to pay taxes as a nonprofit, and has been helpful with those conversations with colleagues from other organizations as they try to understand how they're able to do it, why do they do it, and because, you know, these organizations that have been used to not paying anything and understand, as the gentleman explained, you know, there's never any money, now they're exploring and understanding, and all of a sudden there's some flexibility to figure out how they can actually make it work. But to his methodology there, like it's systematic, it works, it opens the door, and it doesn't, you know, doesn't get shut in our face.
You know, because of the 23 negotiated contracts I've done, I've learned through experience. When I started this in 2010 in Brookline, we had a target. The town wanted to go for Boston University and Children's Hospital. And I immediately went to them, and they immediately said, well, we're willing to talk to you as long as you treat the smaller ones the same.
Right.
And again, the wheels were turning there. We weren't getting far at all. And every time I had a meeting, I would come back to Boston University with, oh, by the way, I signed up another little one. I signed up another little one. And that worked because it proved to them that we weren't saying, we're only looking at you two, only the big ones. We're going to look at everybody. A couple of other recommendations, I already talked about this. When you negotiate a pilot, get it in writing. And one of the reasons is, look, it's voluntary until they say yes. And then once it's in a contract, that's under contract law. And your communities, like every other community, if someone doesn't pay their water bill, it gets liened to their real estate tax. Well, a pilot could be liened to their real estate tax. And you say, wait a minute, they don't have a tax. They have a tax that's exempted to zero. And then the lien goes on
the property
to create tax again. And Brookline did that, and we've had people paying. Boston didn't do that. They didn't totally have a written contract. They have some contracts. And as a result, every year you read in the paper, Boston thought they were going to get X amount of dollars, millions of dollars in pilots, and they didn't get half of it. That's the problem. And the second thing I said is to go back to your old contracts, your old pilot agreements, and renegotiate and put in the correct methodology in place and put it in a contract form. Finally, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. This is my idea. People ask me, well, how could you get them to say yes? And a matter of fact, I alluded to you. I said that I'm going to tell you at the end of this how you might be able to get them to yes. And you approach a tax exempt, and let's say it doesn't matter if they're at the 25% or the smaller group of 15%. Doesn't matter. You can allow them to pay the pilot, written in the contract, phased up over a period of time. Now, why did I do that in Brookline? Well, because I believe that it's better to get the camel's nose under the tent for them to say yes, rather than to say yes and get 25% immediately. And so, I mean, I offered that to everybody. Boston University paid 25% on day one. Children's Hospital did the same thing. Others, we phased it up, so they phased it up over 5 years. I had one nonprofit that phased it up over 25 years. It was Beaver Country Day Private School. Now, when they get to, right now, it's probably 15 years in. But when they get to that 25%, when I negotiated that contract, that 25% was going to be worth about $180,000. And in the last 10 or 15 years, that number has grown because the value of the property has grown. So you could go and you could get them to yes because, you know, when you say 25%, they are, well, I can't afford it. But you can afford 1%. Let's say they phased up over 25 years. Well, hypothetically, if they were going to pay $25,000 in a pilot payment, $1,000 in year one, $2,000 in year two, $3,000 in year three. But that changes because the values are going up. So it might be $2,500 in year two, $4,000 in year three. But you start low so that they can't say, we can't afford this. If you say, you can't afford 25%, well, can you afford something less and phase it up to 25%? And that phase up is part of the negotiations. That's between the city and the tax exempt parcel. So that and the term limits are all part of the negotiations that go on here. Identify and prioritize parcels for negotiation, focusing on the really heavily on city services. You know, some nonprofits use the playgrounds, the parks and playgrounds, because they don't have space for their, they have daycare and they go over to the park and use the facilities of the park. Yeah, some use services of the city. The city's offered them for services for free because you want them to be here. That's all leverage. I mean, you're doing something that they need, and you say, we need, this is like the mayor saying, if you want our help with something at the state, you have to consider the conversation about pilots, so you should do that. Final thing I'll say is, I've frequently asked this, what about in-kind services? I strongly recommend that you do not take in-kind services.
Okay.
Because it's your job, it's the city needs money to pay for, balance their budget. An in-kind service is giving you services, but it's services that were not in the operating budget. So it's doing nothing to help your operating budget. If they want to provide in-kind services, that's great. I have tax exempts in Brookline that did the thing about, we'll give you a scholarship, or we'll do this, we'll do that. But they also paid the pilot payment, phased it up. Some of them phased it up, some of them paid directly. So that's my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much, Mr. Cirillo. I'm sure there's some questions. Oh, Mayor Garcia.
Yeah, and just to include in the closing here, again, thank you so much to the council that unanimously supported investing in doing this. I think this was a good investment, certainly a good tool that I am so much looking forward to finalize and get it to an implementation, this policy, and just so that those nonprofits and folk that are watching, and the bottom line is this: the people that they're serving deserve quality services, and I think that there is a shared agreement there. And I can't give them quality services if we're not collecting the appropriate revenue. And here we're trying to be responsible in how we approach, and it's certainly going to be an expectation from the administration to get organizations around and agree to the policy. And then I'm hoping that this can be like a shared, a shared approach between both the council and myself as we try to go forward. Every organization in the city, all these tax exempt, this has nothing to do with the quality, like they're all doing good and important work, no question. We just want to make sure, just like what they're doing with their constituents, offering quality services, we want to make sure that we're keeping up with quality services as well. And so, I'm looking forward to get this implemented and off the ground, and hoping that the nonprofits that are out there understand what we're trying to do, and will work with whoever, their own boards of directors and other leadership within the organizations, to figure out and strategize how they can be collaborative with the city moving forward, and trying to get organizations to pay an equitable and fair pilot. Thank you so much for your time as well, and for doing the work that you've been doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Pass it to the council.
Just one quick thing. Nancy Creed.
Counselor Devine.
Sorry. Nancy Creed, I forgot that she's retired as the head of the Springfield Chamber of Commerce, so got a pretty good group there with a lot of different skills.
Thank you. And I think this was really informative. I hope that people go back and watch this. Any counselors who didn't get a chance to be here, and I will be sure to share this. I think it's incredibly useful information. Pilot program is a fantastic idea. I would ask if you can share your PowerPoint with the council. Is that okay?
I believe we already have, but we will.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely have your the draft agreement, but the color slides are really helpful. They don't come out in color on the draft agreement.
I'll email it to Stephen.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Okay, great. That would be really nice. And Yeah, any other questions from the committee? No?
I had one quick question.
Counselor Sullivan?
Just refresh me again on where we came up with the 25% number and not
Again, it
30,
was,
33 or?
the nonprofits, tax exempts, do not use all of the services that are offered by the community.
Right.
But they do use police, fire, public works, road repair, and snow removal, with the benefits, health insurance, pensions, all added in, all the benefits that, retiree health, all of those benefits. And so that equaled, in least Brookline and Boston, approximately 25% of the levy. And so that's why we established that. I did analysis for Holyoke, and I was guessing on the benefits, and it was pretty close to 25%.
Okay.
On one way it was a little over 25, one way it was a little under 25. So
Yeah.
it's approximately that, yeah.
I just wondered, we are one of the lowest per capita income cities in the state. We struggle to provide some of the services that might be provided in places like Brookline and Boston and stuff. So I was just wondering if, that's the right number for us to be considering, is 25%.
Oh, it's based on a methodology.
Yep.
And when you consider it, it takes the pressure off of the residents who are paying property tax.
Okay.
Because you're generating additional money.
Okay, thanks, Steve. This has been great. This has been wonderful. Yeah.
Motion that the order has been complied with?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Cirillo.
Pleasure being here.
And Mr. Mayor and
Mr.
Stephen.
May.
All right.
Three amigos.
Take up item 7.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I believe he's here.
Item 7. Are you sure item 7? We didn't do 6 yet. It's 6. Are they? They're both together. Do you want to take up item 6 and 7 as a package?
Second.
All in favor? So, item 6, the Parks Commission forward the proposed lease between the city and Blue Sox to City Council for its review and approval ASAP. And also, item 7 is the DGR committee invite the Valley Blue Sox owner, President Matt Drury, and its new manager, Andy Morales, to a future meeting to preview 2025 season. Matt's in his 3rd season as owner, and this will be Andy's 1st season as Blue Sox head coach. Andy wore number 40 when playing for the Blue Sox, and that number is retired. All right, I see Mr. Drury online. And
Hey, everybody. How are we doing? Can you hear me okay?
yes, welcome, and thanks so much for your patience.
No, thank you for having us. And unfortunately, Andy he's the head coach at Dean College up in Massachusetts, and they're on a trip in Florida, so he is unable to join us.
Gotcha,
But I do
thanks.
have a kind of a brief presentation talking about last year and this year and kind of all the stuff we have coming. And I think that pertains to the lease that Tom has going for us and
Okay.
kind of how it's been laid out. So is everybody okay if I share my screen?
Yeah. You should be able to. If not, Jeffrey will give you the ability. And I just wanted to also note that Tom Reynolds is online as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Hey, Matt, you're muted.
Okay, perfect. I was just figuring out, so I do have a couple of videos that are gonna play through here, so I just gotta go through some hoops with the audio.
Okay.
And if you can't hear the audio on some of the videos, just let me know. I did have Jeffrey put them all in a file for you to have access to as well. So if there's any playback or audio issues, please let me know.
Fresh Kid Z, Fresh Kid C, yes sir. Fresh Kid P, Fresh Kid T. Oh yeah, we back. Oh, and Zach Foon, by the way. Yeah, Jones. Yeah. Chitty Bang, and we pretty much amazing. Can we hear your new song, please? I got you. Hey yo, I once was a kid, all I had was a dream. More money, more problems, when I get it, I'ma pound it up. Now I'm dope, on the bread we can toast, so fresh how we flow, everybody get this down from us. Once was a kid with the other little kids, now I'm ripping up shows and them fans going wild with us. Tell mommy I'm sorry, this life is a party, I'm never growing up. Was a kid with the other little kids, now I'm ripping up shows and them fans going wild with us. Tell mommy I'm sorry, this life is a party, I'm never growing up.
So did the audio play back for the video for you guys?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So that's just a little bit thing that we had done last year for us. It was something that we had put together. It just shows the capabilities and kind of how fun and what part of community we are, and talks about some of the stuff that we're doing to kind of help level us up as far as the Valley Blue Sox go, and what we've been up to. For those of you who are not familiar with the Valley Blue Sox, I think I've presented and spoken to most of you at this point, but if you are new to us, we are an NECBL team, that is the New England Collegiate Baseball Team. We are a summer baseball league, so we take all the best college players from all over the country. They come to Holyoke for the summer, and they join us and play baseball. Our league is consistently ranked as one of the top 2 summer leagues in the entire country. We have 89 professional alumni now who have gone on to play professional baseball or been drafted by major league teams. We are up to 7 major leaguers now that have come through Holyoke and played for the Blue Sox and moved on. So just a little bit about us. We play at Mackenzie Stadium in Holyoke. We've been there, I believe the team's been there since 2007. And it was the Holyoke Giants for a little while as well. But this will actually be my 4th season running the team. So just a little bit about the NECBL and us and our national partnerships. We are on ESPN Plus, which I'll touch base a little bit on, as well as we are funded in part by Major League Baseball. As far as money from Major League Baseball that is funneled into summer leagues, we are the number 2 league in the country for getting money from Major League Baseball. So, and all 30 Major League teams subscribe to our data packages and our scouting packages for our guys. So it is a really high profile league for guys to move on to the next level, and as well as for people to come out and see high level baseball, and the guys who are going to move on and you can say I saw them when, and it's really neat to be able to see them in Holyoke and Mackenzie in such a cool setting that you normally wouldn't be able to go to see your future pro ball players at. Our social media channels, I'll go through these slides quickly because in lieu of, I realize we're running short on time here. So over 10,000 followers. Facebook, Instagram's obviously the bigger one. Twitter, we actually do have a TikTok page now because we got to keep up with the times. So we're moving along with that as well. That's growing in followership. And as you can see, that's the way we are marketing ourselves now and getting really creative. We do have last year, I think we had 23 interns. We'll have about the same this year. It's college kids, local college kids from across the country who come to stay with us and work with us that want to go pro in their fields as well. We've got a great pipeline to ESPN and some of the other big companies as well. It's a really neat internship program that kind of pipes out pros in other areas of sports as well. So something we're really proud of. As well as our community, we do run 4 camps throughout the summer as well that our players provide the staff for. You can see the one that we had the photographer out that day was in Holyoke as well. So we've got our Holyoke clinic, and then we do a couple other towns as well. It's just a way of kind of continuing our presence in the community, but also a great way for local baseball players to get high level instruction by some of the guys who set a great example and have kind of figured out how to take it all the way to that higher level. And it's a really neat chance for the local kids to see kind of what it takes to get to that level. So just some highlights of 2024. These are our host families. As we talk about, I think every year, this is one of the biggest pressure points for us as an organization, as host families. It's an amazing program. We try to do as much as we can for them, but we aren't able to pay our host families. So they are taking in the players, they are feeding them and housing them for the summer, and we provide food and tickets to ball games. We do a Red Sox trip for everybody every year. And it really is neat to see the host families going to visit their ball players when they're at college or in the pros. It's neat to see kind of those lasting relationships. One thing I do want to mention just to this committee, just to have everybody keep their eye on it, or maybe mention it to some people, are that if you look at this photo here, only one of these families is a Holyoke family, which is kind of disappointing, it being obviously that it is our home base, and we'd love to get as much Holyoke involvement as possible. But it is more of the surrounding communities where our host families have been based. So open and to any suggestions you may have to kind of help bring that Holyoke community involvement and get those Holyoke families looking at that pilot or that host family program for us as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Matt, how do people find out that you need host families?
Yeah, so we blast it out on social media. We share it with Tom's office. He actually puts it up every year a couple times for us on the Holyoke Parks and Rec Facebook page. If you've noticed, last year actually we had road signs made that we posted all over town with numbers and emails on how to reach us and talk about it. It's a product of the times, right? And especially post-COVID, hosting it can feel like a daunting task. So we try to do as much as we can. We had a great news article where some of our host families let reporters into their homes to kind of talk about their experience and how great it is. But it is, it's one of those things that's certainly daunting, but we try to go out into community and at events that we have host family flyers. We try to talk to anybody and everyone about it. So certainly if there's, and we try to stay connected with Tom on what's going on as far as in this community Holyoke, but we'd certainly love to blast it out to anyone and everyone.
Really important. Counselor Anderson Burgos has a question.
Hi, yes,
Sure.
thank you. Question, have you reached out to Holyoke Media at all?
Yep, so Holyoke Media actually does we actually have to reach out to them pretty soon because they are able to, we also do the Western Mass Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and Holyoke Media has been provided kind of our media coverage of that for the last few years. But yeah, I certainly know them. Is there something specific you think they might be able to help us with?
You can ask them to do a segment, or you can be part of the
that's right.
segment.
Yep. This is yeah, no, that's a great idea.
It's a public access network, so and a good chunk of our community watches that channel.
Yep, that's a great idea.
That's one point. You have a few social media platforms, and I'm sure you're putting this out on those platforms as well.
Absolutely. So
I
it goes
can
out on
definitely
every platform, kind of similar, and we will get great engagement, but the follow through is not necessarily there for when people say, "Oh, this sounds like a great idea." We'll reach out to them, and it's not. Like I said, it's not just the Holyoke thing. It's a battle every year to kind of make sure that we're making up the numbers and getting there, and it's kind of like that last minute blast of. And usually we always get there, but. And we have a lot of great families year over year that are coming on board, and a lot of these families that you see here are all families that have done it multiple years now, and nobody's really kind of a one and done with it because everybody loves the experience. It's just a matter of getting people to kind of open up their minds and stuff to it. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great idea to get out there on public access, and we do try to blast it out everywhere, including the newspapers.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay. So just to talk about 2024, just a few different highlights. You can see this is with Holyoke Parks and Rec, and Tom, this is actually the second year in a row we've done a Holyoke night. Weather has not been our friend on these Holyoke nights, but we've done with the city, we've done Holyoke Millers t-shirts, and actually something new coming this year on Holyoke Millers. That we'll talk about, but that's just kind of a flyer, an example of a post that we put up about Holyoke Night. ESPN Plus, 2 years ago, we started the pilot program for ESPN Plus, and last year was our first full season of all of our home games being on ESPN Plus. So I have a really neat picture on my phone, actually, of it'll tell you like what's next on ESPN Plus or what to watch, and it's our game sitting right next to a Yankee Red Sox game as an ESPN Plus programming, which is a pretty neat full circle moment, but really cool. And it's also showcasing Mackenzie Stadium in HD every night, our HD 4K cameras. We've made an over $10,000 investment into kind of the infrastructure for cameras and organizing. Our broadcast crew went from a 1 camera setup to now a 5 to 6 camera setup. We went from 1 broadcast intern to now we have 8 or 9 broadcast interns. We actually have a cool story. One of our broadcaster interns last year is now going to be our new broadcaster, but he's a Syracuse student, but is actually the son of a Holyoke police officer, Andy DiNapoli, Jack DiNapoli. Obviously, everybody knows the DiNapoli kind of story, but Jack is going to be our broadcaster this season, which I think is the most local we've had in quite some time. So it's kind of a neat Holyoke connection there as well on that program. And it is something where our last director of broadcasting immediately went from us to now is in the management program at ESPN. So it is a really neat feeder program. And then down on the bottom last year, we also activated and started our very first Valley Blue Sox app. So if you have an iPhone or Android, any of that, you can have access. You just look in the App Store, look up Valley Blue Sox, and we're there. It has our full schedule, has our sponsorships, partners, all that kind of stuff, as well as a points and loyalty program. So that all started last year as well. Last thing that we added last year is this backstop or padding to Mackenzie Stadium. That's it's removable, but it is it played great. It looked great on TV. This was an ask by ESPN for our stadium, just to kind of make the backdrop look a little bit more professional behind. It also created some really neat marketing opportunities for local businesses. You can see Westfield Bank there behind, and we've got some different companies looking at purchasing space back there as well. So those are kind of the new things that happened in 2024. Just to kind of touch on a few points for you.
Wow.
So new for 20, yep.
I said, wow.
Sorry, I know I've thrown a lot at you. So new for 2025, just to kind of talk about where we're at, where we're going. I'll actually skip through that.
Counselor Devine, did you have a question? Just a comment. Okay.
Hang on, I'm just got to do the audio thing one more time. I did want to just mention, I'm going to flip through. It'll be Andy's welcome video next, just so you guys can get a feel for him if you don't know him already.
How we doing, Blue Sox Nation? Andy Morales here. Very excited to be the next head coach for the Blue Sox. Very thrilled for the opportunity to go back to my hometown and back to an organization and a league that did so much for me. Truly a full circle moment. Really excited to get out there this summer and hopefully bring back another championship to Holyoke. I'll see you guys out there soon.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Really? Yeah. Nice. Counselor Devine had a comment.
Yeah, I just have a comment. A couple years ago, I went to a game. You had people could bring their dogs, and that was tons of fun. And one thing that I was really impressed with, besides the baseball, was how much you do for families, and you get the kids out there, and they play little games and things like that to win different items. But I just thought that was really cool, and I want to compliment you on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that's something, I mean, what we talk about is one of the pillars of the league, but also what we're doing, right, is the community piece of it and wanting to really be a part of community. All those games that you see in between innings that we try to get the local kids involved in are all sponsored by local businesses, which is a really neat piece of the puzzle. We try to get creative with some of those and what we're able to do with them. So yeah, no, I really appreciate that, and it's great, and we want to see as many of you out there as possible, because we do think that we're the most fun you can have on a Holyoke summer night for sure, and we appreciate that. And yeah, like I said, I just wanted to play Andy's video and just tell you a little bit about him. Like I said, he's the head coach at Dean College, but he's a Holyoke local. Went to Holyoke High School and then Suffield Academy. He was the pitcher of the year in the league in 2018. He's had really kind of a meteoric rise, and he's going to be a really kind of great representative of both the community. And I just think he's an awesome leader, and to go from playing in 2018, 2019 to now the head coach and a leader of his own program. I mean, he's spent a few different stops, but for somebody under the age of 30 to be given kind of the keys to a college baseball program is pretty impressive. And I think we're lucky to have him, and you guys will be lucky to have him kind of showcasing kind of the best of the community, and somebody that's come there and can talk about it the right way. And I think it's a really, really neat fit for us, and we're excited to have him. And then, so another thing that we're doing, again, this is a community-based, is we've always done the Holyoke Millers giveaways, but this year we're actually going to have Millers Mondays. So we're actually going to have the alter ego. I'm sure a lot of you have seen minor league baseball. You know the teams do the alter ego, but we're going to throw it back to Holyoke. This is kind of, you can see the inspiration for our uniforms on the right, and then so it'll be cool. It'll be the first time I can think of since they changed from Holyoke to Valley that the Blue Sox will play with Holyoke on the front of their jersey, and I think that'll be a really cool connection with the city. Also, we have a gazebo that we're in the process, that's currently at the stadium, that we're in the process of looking at taking down and putting up a smaller, or not a smaller, but like a lower profile patio. We'll talk about that with Tom as well, but it'll be an addition, kind of added some nice areas and open it up some sight lines for folks, because everybody likes to hang out down the left field. It's not the left field line at our ballpark because it's just the way the sun hits. Unfortunately, with the way that Mackenzie's kind of designed, that the giant stands and all that kind of stuff don't get used as much, because for our game times, it's just baked in the sun for the first 4 or 5 innings. So a lot of people like to hang down the left field line, and this will make it a nice, a little bit more of a comfortable area for our groups and stuff that we like to sell and talk about.
Cool.
We have talks of a video board, but that'll be a bigger project and something that we're talking about doing removal. But that's really it for as far as the new stuff for this year. Like I said, since I've taken over, we've certainly thrown a lot at it and tried to make a bunch of different changes. But our goal is always to be a community organization, but also be a professionally run organization. And we want people to realize that the absolute best place to see a baseball game in Western Mass is Holyoke. There's no team more talented in Western Massachusetts, or Massachusetts in general, other than like if you go to Worcester and watch the Blue Sox, or you go to Hartford. This is the best baseball you can see in the highest level. So it's all about showcasing that and making it feel like a kind of a small minor league with a community feel. And we think we're really doing a lot to get there, and we just ask that, obviously Holyoke see kind of the strides that we're making and continue to help us along that journey. And Tom's been great, and he was out there painting his first year. He was out there painting the dugouts for us and all that kind of stuff. So we've had a great partnership there. But again, as always, we want to look to kind of keep moving things and taking things to the next level. And but just to show you all, and then you see the contract number and kind of what we pay, but it's not just that. I think we've kind of shown what we're willing to kind of invest and talk about and kind of show the community that we're here for the long haul, and we're really trying to make a real strong go of it. And we just, like I said, need to keep constant community involvement and maybe a little help for you guys to kind of help showcase us and get folks within the city even more excited, because we get a decent amount of Holyoke fans, but like I said, it's not nearly the stronghold of population of attendees at our games as I would expect it to be. So that's kind of our goal there.
Thank you. Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. I know promotional wise, Holyoke Gas and Electric has done some stuff for you in the past. What, and you guys are the Valley, Valley Blue Sox. What are the surrounding communities doing, if anything, to help not only promote the Blue Sox, but, to bring some tourism and stuff into Holyoke too?
Yeah, so I mean, we partner with Explore Western Mass as one of our partners, so we're involved with a lot of that. They feature us, which obviously features Holyoke to try to get people out. That's a great question. I mean, we seem to we do similar stuff, like we'll do fundraisers. We've talked about doing like community days. Holyoke's the only one that we do a community day for, but certainly stuff that we can get them more involved in. The decision to go to Valley was before I took over, and it was moved just to kind of, I think, to try to entice the entire Pioneer Valley to get involved and show up and come to games. And when I speak about like their support, it's not necessarily that the other towns or the cities are doing more. It's that the bulk of our fan base, for whatever reason, tends to be from more of the surrounding area versus just Holyoke.
Yeah,
which is great. We want people from all over the place, but I would when taking over, and there was a study that was done right before I took over on the demographics. I was just expecting Holyoke to be a larger portion of our fan base than it has turned out to be.
All right. Well, all I'm saying is if you can think of anything we can do to encourage our surrounding communities to do things like HG&E or South Hadley, West Springfield, the rest of them. We also have a tourism group here in Holyoke. Maybe there's a little push we could make there to, increase attendance.
ExploreHolyoke.com.
Yeah, I mean, we're a member of the Chamber of Commerce and all that within Holyoke, and we try to go to as many events as possible. But yeah, absolutely, I think that's a great idea and stuff that we can talk about with other towns and some of the areas and see, with some of your connections as well. Just mentioning us and see if we can get on their local forums and maybe talk to some of their local government as well and let them know, hey, we're here and we're happy. Come visit Holyoke. And by the way, here's 8 other things to do in Holyoke. Well, before you go to game, here's go here and get a hot dog, or go here and we want you to get a hot dog at our games too. But where to go before and afterwards, and what else to see.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, Matt. Thank you. Do we have other questions from the committee? All right. So that was 6 and 7. The motion is
Complied with.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks for that, Matt. And then it looks like we're gonna take 8 and 9 as a package. Is that the motion?
Well,
Thank you, Matt. You're all set. I just shared, by the way.
Perfect. Thank you. And then, please follow us on all of our social media channels and share, and we will certainly let you know when stuff's happening. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great to see you all again.
Thank you.
Likewise.
All right. Motion.
Motion to take up item number 8 and I believe 9. Yeah, so 9. Okay, so
And
motion
we
to
just
take up
did. Did we do 6 and 9? No. I thought we did.
No, we didn't take up 9.
I believe it was 6 and 7 because they were both pertaining to the Blue Sox,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Yeah.
And then
So we
8,
want 8 and 9 are the
8,
contracts.
I mean, 9 you could probably package in that because it's also dealing with the contract with Blue Sox that Councilor Bartley had said that he was behind us, that was okay. But the Elms College, slightly different, tomato, different but similar structure.
All right.
So motion to take up item number 8 and 9.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 8 is from the Parks and Rec, the Elms College contract for 2025. And number 9 is from Parks and Rec, the Blue Sox contract for 2025. Thank you, Tom. So sorry to keep you waiting, and thanks for your patience.
No worries.
So I guess we can start with 8. Did you want to go through that real quick? I mean, we have it. I've read it. I don't know.
It's recurring. It's been well before what I've been here for my going on to the start of the 4th year. between the two of them, like I said, just different terms based on what's required on our side in terms of just staffing the games versus the Elms are very self-sufficient. Usually college teams help out, taking care of the field, tarping the field, so there's less of us to be there for versus Matt's Blue Sox. It's straightforward. The contract price we've increased, I think, over $500 from last year, as lime and stuff, have increased. But like I said, with Matt brings to the table, we're just trying to get that place to be up to par. We want to, now that we are on ESPN Plus, we're trying to make sure that what we're showing out there is good caliber. We have a great surface, but we're just trying to button up and cross the T's and dot the I's of the other stuff that's there. We have lighting structures that have been there since I was a bat boy for my dad in the Legion days back in the early 80s. And so, like I said, we're just trying to work on stuff. Things are pricey now. So we're chipping away each season with that place, with the money that's coming in through there and the softball from the adults leagues. So, we replaced the roofs last year for the dugouts. In our shed, we had kind of reframed it in a little bit. It was kind of seeing some water damage. So, any money we're really trying to get in off of these contracts, we're really my goal is to put it back into the place. So it's playable. It looks good. It looks good on us. So, they're straightforward. So, nothing's changed. I think we just did this dance back in October or September. So we should be fairly fresh. But we are ahead of the season. So I just wanted to get this out and,
Awesome.
thanks to Council Bartley for making recommendations for the CC to be, making sure everything's approved. And so.
No, yeah, that's great. Happy to see it already. Do we have any questions about either of these contracts from the committee? All right.
I don't know, do we approve contracts? Or we just receive these?
I think we just receive these and send them to city council. Yeah.
Motion.
Madam Chair,
Jeffrey?
I think in the past you have approved them.
Oh.
Okay,
I think that's the reason why we submit them. So I think all leases and contract of land use, I think, gets approved, if I recall correctly from experience here. So I think it's just for you guys to approve, and then from here we can go out and actually I can get these contracts executed, and then we'll be in good for season starts.
Okay,
Thank you, Tom.
Motion to approve.
You're welcome.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that motion was to approve 8 and 9, just so we're clear?
Correct.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Tom. Sorry to keep you waiting again. Appreciate you.
Motion to take up
That's
item
okay.
number 10.
Thank you guys. Have a great night.
You too. Motion to take up item number 10. Off the table.
Anybody? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 10. All right. Item 10, the Conservation Commissioner be invited to attend a future DGR meeting. So this has been tabled a few times now because we were waiting for input. I think we definitely got our input from Attorney Bissonette from the Law Department. This is about the construction in and around Scotts Tower. Please be prepared to address the issue of runoff. This was tabled a couple times because we had members from that neighborhood here. The update, we tabled it last time so that the update could be heard if any of those residents wanted to come in again. They haven't attended the last 2 meetings, so I'm under the impression they understand that the update, which was flooding on Anniversary Hill caused runoff, is no longer occurring in the ponds, have yet to be remedied, but affected owners need to file a claim and copy the city to Mass West and GZA engineers. There are no estimates or claims for damages currently. So that's kind of where we're at. The city can't really do a whole lot without residents putting in claims for damages on their side. So that's been the update. It's been the same update the last couple meetings. I would like to see this item complied with as And if there's something else that we want the city to do, or if there's something else that somebody wants to do, they can file a different order for that. But
Motion that the item is complied, or the order is complied with.
Second. I do think it's a good idea that, and Mike can probably speak to this too. I do think it's a good idea to do this and then perhaps file another order, because I think Mike can tell you about some of the people up there, the Flynn,
Yeah.
he's still involved in this, but
Right.
for this particular order, I think you're right to.
And also, I know that Councilor McGrath Smith has been in touch,
Right.
and they've been doing some other work on this. And I don't know what else is going on outside of this committee, but I feel like as far as what this committee was trying to do, we did that. So, okay. So on the motion that this order be complied with, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And the last,
Motion to adjourn.
not the least. No seconds. We're staying all night.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.